Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Will Work for Podcast. As always, I'm Daniel Thornton, and with me is...
Brendan Boland.
Oh, yeah. And we're back, baby. We're back. All right. So the rejection resume, I made it. I put it out. I tried to follow Dr. Eli Joseph's, things. I don't know if I re-listened to the episode and tried to go into it and think about what it was actually structured like. I think I did an okay job. But yeah, it was an interesting thought experiment going through it because also, reflecting on from our last week's episode about his construction of the rejection resume, he was talking about, putting on the things that are the big highlights of your rejection career. So it was interesting to think about that.
Like what, formative things that didn't work out or that you tried for and kind of that you still know you're connected with right now, you kind of a thing.
Like things that are still stuck in here that I think about every other, sometimes, they creep into your head. And
right.
You're like, hey, remember when they told me that I was perfect for this job but still didn't give it to me? Yeah, I should probably put that on this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so after you're done with that, when you're looking at it, what came up? Because this was the thought that I kept having around, and even when I was trying to create an initial sketch, I didn't go as detailed as you with actually having the format and formal version of it, but it's I get that it allows me to feel more accomplished. I see work that I've been doing, whether or not it's maybe been recognized. But I don't know. I'm curious. Did it have any kind of impact or thought after you kind of looked at it as a whole?
Well, to be honest, it was just really hard to remember all the stuff too, like the dates. The timeline is the worst thing because I can remember, the big rejections, but when they happened, and then I kind of put the timeline of my career kind of in the pieces. So it was interesting to see how I've grown from this,
okay,
what I make, because we save our rejection letters, right? So I have some of the rejection letters with me too, and so I thought about it for a second of how I've grown from this, what mistakes I wouldn't have made now that I know better,
It's almost like you can see the redirection, you can see the rejection, the response to it, how that, and then kind of this pathway that's been mapped by that.
And in my younger years, I looked at some of the rejections
Sorry. In my younger years.
Back in the day. But I just remember thinking I'll never get a job. I remember some of the rejections I got, and I was just thinking I'll never get a job. And now I always have the mentality of I'm too young to have that mentality. I'm too young
to have that weigh on you.
Yeah, to have that way that I'll never have a job. That's literally impossible, essentially, unless I'm going to be a bum or live on the street, because I'm going to get a job eventually. And so that really gives me a sense of peace sometimes, is, moving forward in my career, regardless of what happens, I know that I will have jobs and that things will come to me.
And so just to clarify, even if you choose to not have a job and you are homeless, that doesn't reflect negatively on you as a person. Just need to say that as a caveat. Continue.
That's true. I was just trying to point out that you will have a job if that's what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not really something that you need to be worried about, because I used to be worried a lot about it. You get those rejections and then you say, I'm never I did 2 interviews for this company and I thought I was perfect for this position. There's no way I'll ever get a job. And that's not true. That's wrong.
I flashed to Sam Thiara talking to us about that stack of the 150 letters. Just the idea of if we had started this process 10 or 15 years earlier, if we, we as professionals that we're writing or typing and mailing and getting stuff back in the mail. It's just, I think that seems to be a common theme that we've heard a lot of places, is instead of it being the thing that holds you down, there is a way to flip the mindset on it, and it fuels you to keep pushing. And I think that's cool. Yeah, that's fair.
Rejection is redirection, as our good friend Adiana says. So
there it is.
Remember that, guys, everybody out there. Like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the rejection resume. Go look at it on LinkedIn and online. We posted it on our blog as well. Like and subscribe. Videos on LinkedIn, Instagram, all the platforms. And on with the show. All right. Well, let's welcome to the show Alex Tremble. He's an award-winning speaker, author, and leadership expert who has over 10 years of experience coaching and advising some of our nation's most senior-level government leaders. Alex began his career managing 3 government-wide senior leadership development programs and quickly went on to establish GPS Leadership Solutions while publishing 2 best-selling books. Welcome to the show, Alex.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good.
Good energy, yeah.
That's good energy. We got to get up to where you are. So.
I can give you a hint. It has to do with some shots.
Well, we're glad you're bringing the energy, Alex. And this, I guess, is going right into our first question because kind of like I just did a whole bunch of word soup onto everybody. But tell us your journey and how you got into this leadership and coaching space.
Hey, again, I appreciate that question. Again, I appreciate you all allowing me to be here with you today. Funny enough, so when I was about 23 years old, I was doing some networking on LinkedIn, which I'm always trying to build relationships. It always just works out really well. And I was invited to come and create the Executive Leadership Development Program for the U.S. Department of the Interior. Now, look, I'm 23 years old. I'm like, they're not going to really let me do this mess. Yeah, they messed up and really let me do it. So, and so I started creating these programs and managing these programs and coaching and mentoring some of the government's top most successful executive leaders. And what I realized was that, man, like the stuff that I was teaching to all these super successful leaders, we should be teaching to everybody. Right? You shouldn't have to sit up here and wait till you're 40, 50, 60 years old to start learning how to navigate your career, how to deal with politics, how to build strategic relationships. Like you can do that stuff like now. So, I wrote my first book called The GPS Guide to Success, which is focused on helping individuals identify their goals and develop a strategic plan to get there. And I followed that one up with Reaching Senior Leadership, which is specifically focused on identifying your leadership skills and building relationships and knowing how to navigate your career.
Yeah, well, it's good that you bring that up too, because I've been trying to delve into that a little deeper because we've talked to a lot of coaches before, and we've talked to a lot of people about building your goals and making sure how do you get a job, but we really haven't delved into how do you move up to senior leadership status. So what are some of the best practices in order to accomplish those goals?
It's funny. I'm literally coming up with the top of my head. Everyone agrees. I would assume everyone agrees that Steph Curry is a bad man. Like he been knocking down shots from everywhere. Right? But then the reality is he didn't start there, right? Like he had to take a shot. He had to take a shot from somewhere at some point, and very likely he missed a large number of those shots. And I would make that same comparison to people who want to be successful and rise up a leadership chain. The reality is most people, the average person, is afraid to take the shot. And so they never give themselves the opportunity to even try to get there. So the first thing I would say is take your freaking shot. I mean, I hope I can use the word freaking. Take your shot. Talk to someone, reach out to some executives, talk to some people who you think are, I love to talk about exceptional and extraordinary leaders, right? If you can be around extraordinary leaders, they're going to bring you around other extraordinary leaders and provide you the opportunity to be exposed to extraordinary ideas, thoughts, plans like this. I've had some leaders just blow my freaking mind, man, because like one dude I was talking to in a bar one time and he was like, oh yeah, man, I'm 42 years old and, I'll probably retire at 45. I got a few $1 million stacked away. I'm like, oh, what? And I never even thought you could do that. Now that's my plan. Like I'm trying to be sitting on not going to sit on the beach. I want to just be living my life, doing what I want by 45 because I talked to some guy who made it happen. And you know what? Honestly, I know I'm going to talk to someone who's going to do it earlier. And I'm going to say, you know what? You're right. I can do that too.
Brendan, you want...
No, I mean, like, yeah. So apologies, that was awkward. No, I mean, like, so that's awesome. Like, and I guess when I'm looking at your stuff, and like, even if we just push this this story a little bit forward, right? So you're 23, you did this project, you got this like shot that you got. Like, what went next for you? Like, how then did you kind of rally? Like, is it you realize like this is my opportunity to create a business out of this, and I just kind of started going from there? Like, what happened next?
So this is why I stress the importance. So what I teach on is leadership development. I teach on how to develop relationships, mentoring relationships, and so on and so forth. This is one of the reasons why I talk about mentoring so much, is because that is why I am where I am today. See, very early in my career, again, I was doing this stuff, and it was great, blah blah blah, and people started hearing about me. Oh shoot, Alex, can you speak here? Can you speak here? Started getting invited to go to these freaking conferences, to the White House, all kind of really cool stuff. And one of my mentors, I was literally on a metro heading back home. It was super late. We're talking to her, and she was like, "Alex, why don't you have a business?" And I'm like, I don't know how to run a business. Like, I'm just helping people. No, like, do a business. Like, you can do this. And literally on that metro ride home, she was just asking me a bunch of questions, which ultimately resulted. She was like, "What do you focus on?" I'm like, "I want to help people define their, where they want to go, what they want." She said, "Oh, you want goals? You want to help people define their goals?" "Oh, you're right." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you got to know how to do it." And she said, "Okay, so what you want to help them develop a strategy to reach their goal." I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, but then you got to make sure you're managing your energy and your effort and putting towards the right things so that you have the energy to get where you want to be." And she was like, "So you're looking at stamina. Like, how do they maintain that stamina?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, So you name your business is GPS? No, stamina? I'm like, "Oh, you good. You good."
All right, this is a great question, because I've actually was thinking about this the other day. You're talking about a mentor. I'd be curious who this person was, and like how did you bring that person into your life? Because I think these kind of critical questions, or having that person that's going to work that process with you, that's invaluable as well. And it looks like you have that in your life. How did that come about, and how do you use it?
Oh, dude. So look, I'm weird. So I'll tell you, I'm weird, and if I'm the only person who believes this way, then I'm lucky. So I never asked my wife to be my girlfriend. And I'm not sure if that's a thing, but I never asked her to be my girlfriend. I just hung out with her.
Hang out.
You just wore it down.
Like, "Hey, you want to get married?" So I honestly say the same thing about mentorship, right? Is, when you ask, I've managed to create multiple mentoring programs, right? And the hardest thing to do for a mentoring program is to find mentors. Why? Is that because everyone's a dick? No, not at all. But most people don't feel like they know enough to be a good mentor. That's what it generally comes down to. There's just so much. There's so much around that word mentor that makes people feel like I can't be responsible for this person. I don't got enough time to feed into this person's life. What if I say something wrong and they mess up? Now I'm responsible for them going down. Like, saying that word, asking someone to be your mentor, that's a lot. Yeah. So what I do, I just date without them knowing it. Like, the woman who I'm talking about right now, literally the first time I met her, we were in this meeting with the assistant secretary of the Department of the Interior and all these other executives. I heard her speaking, and she was freaking just crazy smart. And I loved how she would navigate the room. And I was like, "Yeah, she's going to be my mentor. Cool. I'm going to do this." And this woman who was sitting next to me, another young lady, she was like, "Hey, madam, would you be my mentor?" Mm-hmm. And the woman said, sorry, I can't. I don't have the time. I don't have the time to be a mentor right now. But, if you like, you can join this association, and they meet up every, few months, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, "Okay, yeah." I'm like, "Nah, that's not going to be me." And so I was like, "Hey, madam, I'd love to ask you a question. What are your thoughts on X, Y, and Z?" She said, "Oh, yeah, that's a great question." And then I call her up a few weeks. "Hey, I had this concern. I'd love to hear your thoughts." I kept engaging her over and over and over. And she started inviting me out to events, to meeting people. And she invited me to a gala one time. And I remember when I walked in, and she was like, "Hey, Alex, da-da-da-da." And, "Oh, madam such and such, madam such and such. Oh, this is my mentee, Alex." And I was like, "Oh, shoot, I got her. I tell people, you can gain a mentor without asking that person to be their mentor. Just be around them. It's about the relationship anyways. And that's what I teach with my relationship building model, which is how to identify the right people to build relationships with, and then how to go about doing that successfully,
Yeah, I think, and that's a great metaphor that you just used. And I'm interested, how do you get, when you talk with introverts, with people who identify themselves as introverted and want to maybe pursue yours, but think, wow, that's like a lot of stuff. Like, I'm not that person.
I will let you in on a quick secret. I masquerade as an extrovert. See, you hear all this and you see this, and I'll be on stages talking to 500, 600, 700 people. Dude, like, real talk, I want to be at home. Like, I don't need to be around people all the time. And so when people talk about, oh, I'm an introvert, does that mean I can't build successful strategic relationships? I'm like, no, that's not the case. Unfortunately, our society has encouraged us to think that's the case because we watch all these movies, right? We're the most extroverted person. Like, oh, they're so rubbing elbows and shaking hands and loud and boisterous. And they're the people who are successful. But the reality is, research shows that actually introverts can be much better relationship builders. Why? Because they're not doing as much talking, they're listening, right? So what I would tell people, again, I use myself as an example because everyone is unique and I love to work with people, on a one-on-one, is identify first, who are you? What do you like? Where are you most comfortable, right? I'll give a quick example. I don't like large groups of people. I feel very uncomfortable in spaces like that. Well, that translates to me not really feeling comfortable in these big crowded happy hours, right? Now, we didn't do that for a while during COVID, but now they're already starting to happen again. And that is not high on my list. I just don't like doing it. So what do I do instead? Knowing that I don't like being in those types of environments, I intentionally look for places where I am comfortable. Maybe some conferences, maybe some talks, some book readings, where I can be in a relatively small room with a few people in there with me. I can hear someone speak. And then if I like what they say, I'll walk up to them directly after the meeting and say, oh my God, you're so wonderful. You're so great. I'd love to connect with you. Can I get your information? I get their information and then I leave. Why? Because I don't feel comfortable talking to this person in front of everyone else. I feel more comfortable having a one-on-one conversation with that person. So I'll reach out with them immediately the next day, if not that same day. So it's all about understanding where you are most comfortable and then positioning yourself in those situations, because if you're comfortable, you're more likely to feel confident. If you're confident, people are more likely to trust you and believe you in what you're saying. So these are all things that are really critical as you're going about trying to build relationships with individuals.
Yeah, I dig that. And I think, that I really appreciate the calling in of the awkwardness that can be that crowded happy hour, especially when it's like the business professionals that are people in my supposed sector, and you walk in there and you don't know anybody, or maybe you know that one person, then you suddenly kind of like latch on, and it's like, you're already in my network. What am I doing? You mentioned LinkedIn earlier, and I know part of your process is definitely using LinkedIn as that networking space, as that event. And are you like, what's the model for that? Is it writing the comments and trying to get known there? Is it sending messages? Or what have you found to be most effective when you're trying to build that network in that space?
I would say really quickly, is go back to that room thing. The reality is sometimes in some places, you're not gonna be able to get away from it. You're gonna have to go to a happy hour, right? You're gonna have to do it, right? You're gonna have to be at an event you don't really want to be at. So what do you do in those situations? Show face, right? You can go there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, walk an X across the room so everyone sees your face. If you keep doing this over and over and over, people then they start to believe, oh, you belong here. Even if you're not there, they knew you were there. So when you have a conversation with them, they're like, oh yeah, he belongs in this space. And I can tell you a story about that later if you want me to. But to answer your second question about LinkedIn, I think, again, the first thing is just taking a shot. Most people are so worried about, am I going to do it right or wrong? Not doing nothing is the worst thing you can do, right? So the first thing is just get on LinkedIn and start connecting with people. I have people who are much more comfortable doing research on every single person they want to connect with, writing a nice little unique message to every single person and reaching out to them. That's cool. It works. What do? Generally speaking, I click add. right?
Just like connect. I'm just like, come into my space. Yeah.
I'm adding people.
Yeah.
Why does it work for me? One, because I've been very intentional with building out my LinkedIn profile. So when people see me, they know I'm not just some random person, not about nothing on LinkedIn, right? If you look at my LinkedIn page, you see what I'm posting, you see what I'm talking about, you see that I'm about my business. And again, I've done a really good job of being very intentional with my quote unquote title on LinkedIn. So when people see me, they say, okay, this is a serious person. Now, again, there is the every once in a while type of person who I may actually write a message to, but they're fairly far and few between, only because the reality is you're looking at probability. Again, I'm not a huge smart numbers guy. I'm not that guy. I can motivate someone, inspire someone, but I'm not going to do some trigonometry. I can barely say the word. But probability is a word that I know. Yeah. And what you can do is you increase your probability of success by just having more people seeing you. If you're connected to more people on LinkedIn and when you post something, there's a higher probability people are going to see you post something. And we know, research shows that if people will see your face over and over and over again, they are more likely just to like you simply because they saw you. They're not even interacting with you. So you want to be consistently posting and sharing stuff. And then to your point, getting on that last point you talked about, yes, if you want to take it to the next level, absolutely. Like people's posts. Be very intentional with commenting on their posts. Share their post. But I got some really great advice from one of my former guests from my podcast, the Alex Tremble Show.
Nice plug.
Thank you. And what she told me, she was like, look, Alex, don't do it to everyone. Her name is Elaine Jacques. She's just phenomenal. She said, don't do it to everyone because you can't. She identify 5 to 10 people you really want to develop a relationship with. And then consistently like their posts, consistently comment on their posts after a while, because they'll see your name and your face popping up over and over and over. And so when you do go to try to reach out to them, they're like, okay, it's not someone new. It's someone I've been seeing for a while, you know?
Well, it's the same idea. And I love this idea of just like not just exposure, which is what you're practicing and doing, but it's also this you're not subversively, you're becoming familiar to this person without even like having that conversation point. And I love that. Like I wouldn't have put it in that way, but yeah, like whether you're in the building or whether you're just popping up in the feed, they're like, man, I've seen this guy like 10 times and I don't even know who he is. I guess I should find out. Like that's brilliant. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting. I want to bring up something that you talked about like briefly before was COVID. So like we've gone into a lot of virtual models, and you just talked about, making contacts in these spaces that are, in person, but like how do you do that on a virtual, like if you go to a virtual conference and you're like, man, I really want to talk to this speaker afterwards. Like, have you been able to navigate that in this new environment?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about doing your homework, right? So, before I go to a conference, if I'm spending my time, the most valuable resource each and every one of us have is our time. I just finished reading this book called 4,000 Weeks, and the author is a phenomenal book. He basically equates our time to our life. Those two things they can't be separated. Your time is your life. So when you are wasting your time, you are wasting your life. Crazy thought, right? And so if I'm going to spend my time, I'm going to spend my life doing something, I'm going to make sure I do my homework. So I will actually look up who's speaking at those conferences prior to those conferences, and I'll reach out to them on LinkedIn. I'll reach out to them via email saying, hey, look, I'm coming to this conference. I'm looking forward to hearing you speak, blah, 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 blah. Can we connect before? Can we connect afterwards? Whatever it may be. Again, just doing that pre-work. Now, yes, you can definitely meet people during the conference that you didn't know was going to be there. And I do this all the time too, is I will, again, it sounds ridiculous sometimes, but I actually look at the attendee list. You can generally see who's in the room with you. And so as we're in those conference spaces, I will look at the attendees list and just start picking their names out, going to LinkedIn, adding them, saying, I was in this room with you. I'd love to continue the conversation. And you'd be surprised at how many people reply back with affirmative.
Huh.
Yeah, it's because that shared experience. They're saying yes because they were the thing. Maybe they have some thoughts on it, and now you get to be part of their debrief and integration model of whatever they learned. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's charisma, baby. That's what Alex's guys got, charisma. So I guess another point in how do you identify the leaders that you want to talk to? Like the ones that you want to be a part of that may want to be your mentor. Like, what does that process look like?
So that's a great question. And what I'll say is there are two different answers I want to bring up. So the first one is what I talked about earlier, that C4 relationship building model. Again, so really quickly, the C4 relationship model is composed of having the right mindset, having internal clarity, having external clarity, and then having the right behavior choice. Behavior choice being exactly what do you do, what do I say, how do I walk, so on and so forth. External clarity meaning who are you trying to reach out to, and who are those individuals and what do they need, what their interests are, who are their friends, enemies, so on and so forth. Internal clarity meaning who you are, how are you most comfortable, what are my goals, and so on and so forth. And then mindset is always the first thing, right? Because if you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter what you or I teach anyone. If they're not willing to do it, it's not going to matter, right? So to answer your question, the first thing you got to be focused on is that internal clarity, understanding what it is that you actually want. I'll give a real quick example. I believe I created this thing called, I was younger, I created this, why it sounds like this. I call it Franken mentorship, right? Like Frankenstein was put together from a bunch of different body parts. And I believe the same thing for my mentors. I'm very intentional with understanding what it is I want in my life and then bringing all those different people together, different facets of people together to create that quote unquote monster, right? Like, so for me, I have an individual who's in my life right now who's a phenomenal father. He's a really great father. And so he's one of my mentors. I have a woman, the woman I talked about earlier, who's just really good with politics. So I got her in my circle. I have someone who's really good in the nonprofit space. I got someone who's really good in business. I got someone who's really good in external affairs. And then communications, because I oversee communications at the other organization I work at. So I'm very intentional with understanding what do I need to make me the most successful leader, and then how do I identify those individuals? And again, really quickly to take that next step is how do you identify the individuals who are great, right? Great's better than good. How do you identify great's good, right? But how do you identify those people who are exceptional, who are extraordinary, who can bring you to the tables and bring you to ideas that you would have never thought about on your own? That's the trick. And that's what I'm always advocating for people who I work with is how do we be very intentional identifying those extraordinary individuals,
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm always trying to think of that. And because it's funny. I also have like a weird relation, like you were talking about mentors having a weird relationship with the word mentor is like, I have a weird relationship with the word mentor. Cause is a mentor your friend? Like, what is this relationship? Is it, I guess sometimes I fear like, is it transactional? I don't know. I have maybe you can provide me with some clarity.
So I'm hoping to make this as clear as mud. So there is no real clarity on a mentorship relationship. There isn't. And I think that's the first challenge that most people have is that they believe that either this person is a mentor or they're not. And I think in more cases than not, there's something in between, right? Like the mentor who is a phenomenal father, he started off as a straight up mentor, but now he's evolved to a place where we're actually friends. And so I can get friendly advice from him. Sometimes I get straight up, objective mentor advice. At the same time, there are people who, and I talk to that guy almost every other day, right? I talk to him a lot. Right. There are other mentors who, are straight up mentors who I only talk to. I have one woman, I actually meet with her once a quarter. She's a phenomenal, very successful woman. And so I have to be respectful of her time. And so her and I meet every single quarter. I have a woman who I meet with, once or twice a year, right? As needed. And I think that's what we have to be very intentional with understanding is that one, it's on the mentee to be respectful of the mentee's time, but also the mentor's time. So every relationship is not the same. If I wanted to treat that woman who I meet with on a quarterly basis, like the one who I text right now, right before I got on here, that relationship would be non-existent. She'd be like, this is too much. I can't do this. But just realize, have that conversation, kind of fill it out. How often can you talk to someone and it be cool, right? And again, the last thing I'll say on that is again, we have to understand as mentees what our role is. Our role is to come to that conversation ready to learn. Having some questions set aside. If they give you some advice, try the advice. If it works, great. Tell them it works. If it doesn't work, hey, this didn't work. Do you have any other ideas? Like, you got to be ready to come to this conversation, because again, their time is valuable. And I'll be real with everyone. Earlier in my career, I mentored a lot of people. And right now I can say I have one mentee that I talk to on an annual basis and one mentee that I speak to on maybe a bi-monthly basis. And it's not because I don't like other people. It's because I'm busy, right? And so I have to be very intentional with my time. And so now that I realize that that's how I have to navigate my time, my energy. I also have a family. I got to make sure I'm developing energy to them. I understand that, oh, shoot, maybe that person who can't talk to me all the time, maybe they're not being an a-hole to me. Maybe they just got other priorities. And so I'm going to respect that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that. I feel like the other piece too is when we're talking about professional aspects, and you kind of define this really well when you're talking about who you brought into your life, but that helps too. Because I think if it's defined by profession or specific skill set or whatever, right, then it also kind of helps with that. Like, I have someone that's helping me with my ability to counsel, but I like that you have someone that's in your life that's a father, or like the mentor father. Cause I got a friend who has transitioned into being the mentor dad. Cause he's got kids that are like a few years older, and I just have a few months old. So it's like, I'm like reaching out all the time being like, okay, what's next? And he's like, oh, you're good. Until 6 months, this is what it is. Right. So I totally understand this idea of like, part of the relationship building is also understanding who they are and that piece that they're bringing to you, or you're asking about. That resonates really deeply. I want to touch on, as we finish up here, on that kind of that last piece that you just touched on, or you spoke to, which is about balancing kind of these personal needs, family needs, and professional needs. And as you're talking about in this leadership capacity, like, I am curious, like, how do you manage kind of self when you are interacting with all these others and these different roles and responsibilities?
Whew.
That's a small question. 2 minutes, whatever, just casual. Like, my bad.
No, I'll tell you. So my wife and I try to be very transparent as much as possible. People can learn from us and what works, what doesn't work. And so I'll tell you, my wife and I had some challenges for a while, because she would see me like out there laughing, jumping around, blah, 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 because again, I masquerade as an extrovert, and I come home and I'm just tired. I'm just really, really tired. And she was like, dude, like, how come everyone else gets that part of you, but I don't? And so, that was something that, we worked with our counselor, marriage counselor, which I encourage everyone to get counseling, because it's just so freaking helpful to just have someone to talk to, an objective party. But to answer your question, it became a real conversation between me and her, saying, hey, look, I'm going to be out on the road sometimes. I'm going to be speaking here. I'm going to be doing that. But you know what? Thursday nights are date nights. And that is our time. It's not going anywhere. And she at the same time is like, you know what, Alex? Saturdays and Sundays, those are your times. Generally speaking, they're my time. So I can work, because there's a lot of things during the week. I'm teaching courses and so on and so forth. And I need the extra time on the weekends to do my editing or my writing and things like that. So I think it's an ongoing conversation with those people in your life who are really important to you. And the last thing I'll say on that is that, like, when I teach and I talk about the importance of relationships, we got to remember, it's not just relationships because it's how we get promoted, because really, I think like 80% of people who get jobs are actually promoted or found those jobs via relationships, not clicking submit on Indeed or something, right? So it's not just about the career aspect. It's about, us as people and our happiness. We are social beings. We don't like being alone. And if we are alone for too long, hashtag, oh my God, what's it called when you're in jail and they put you in
isolation?
Isolation, right?
Yeah.
You can go crazy, right? And so, like, relationships are really important. You should be very intentional with identifying who are those individuals in your life who add value, right? And it's not like, it's like a transactional thing. Actually, I'd love to talk about that. We have time another day, I guess. But it is transactional. Like, if someone's not adding value to my life, if they're taking from my value, then they don't belong in my life. And I'm just being real. Like, if the reason why you love, I assume, your wife or your mother or whoever it is because they provide you with something. They provide you with caring, with a kind heart, whatever it is. They're providing that. If they provided you nothing, that is a bad relationship. You should get away from it. You should run. And so identify those people who add that true value to your life and be intentional with scheduling time to be with them. There's a group of guys who I hang out with, and I intentionally put us on a quarterly meeting now because COVID, we don't meet up as in person anymore, right? So every quarter we go out and just have drinks and just talk. And it's cool because we talk about counseling. We talk about what it means to be a father. We talk about what does it mean to be a man, a Black man in our circumstances. Like, you got to have intentional time to spend with those people that add value to your life, and you should make sure you're adding value to theirs.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a great conversation, Alex, and we've learned a lot from it. I sure have. And if people want to learn more from you, where can they find you?
AlexTremble.com, AlexTremble.com. I love to meet you and talk to you and everyone. And again, read the book, Reaching Senior Leadership. It's a great book. Find on Amazon.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And thank you so much for talking with us. We're going to have you back on. We have a lot more stuff to say, but that's fine. Awesome. Until the next time.
Wait, so how does Alex know Chad?
I think they met through like coaching. I think they've done tandem coaching before. I think that's what Chad told me. But yeah, and you know Chad. Chad knows everyone. Chad's like Alex, he just goes up and talks to everybody. So like, I'm sure they figured out some way to find each other. But yeah, friends of the show. No, that was great. I really enjoyed, I guess, and I really enjoyed how it's basically just like working out, like trying to get mentors and like trying to network with people is because, you just have to do it all the time. You just have to work on the muscle all the time or to get results. And
well, that's why I kind of appreciated the conversation around the happy hour thing, right? Because I
right.
Whether there are plenty of people that sure could walk into that room and feel comfortable, but I think a lot of us, even those of us that consider ourselves like quote unquote extroverts, can walk into a space and just be like, how am I going to start these conversations? What is it going to be about? Right. And I think what Alex is trying to suggest is, as much as possible, one, kind of having a stacked deck, like coming in already having an idea maybe of like who some of these people are. Right. And that has to do with what the event is, and maybe like, any kind of pre stuff, looking on Eventbrite and seeing who's RSVP'd, yes. Yeah. Right. And so then you're walking into a room already being like, oh, I know that person. Like, I generally know what they're about. And you could use that as an introduction. So I think that was cool. Just even how to disrupt some of those discomforts in a really, really systematic way.
Yeah. And I thought when we initially talked, and he said it during the interview, right? He doesn't have the conversation with the person right there. He just gets the information and he just leaves. And I thought that was an interesting approach, because I think so many times I've been told, oh, you got to like get in there right then. Like, this is the time to talk to them. And it's like, no, it's not the time to talk to them. They're in the middle of an event. There's 500 people that want to talk to them. If they're really this important person that you want to speak with, so you only have a limited amount of time, and putting that on you and say like, I'm going to follow up with this and I'm going to make this happen, takes a lot of pressure off of them to be like, oh, you need all the answers from me right now. So yeah, I thought that was appreciative. And I thought his whole advice was very simple, but direct and very easy to follow too, which I appreciate. Yeah. And we hope that you enjoyed his advice out there as well, and that you try some of his techniques. Think about networking yourself. Maybe reach out to him on LinkedIn. He's probably going to accept you. That's what he said. So, just remember, until the next time, we're going to be working for you.
Ciao, yo.